say every single day, like it's not that big of a deal. And that little 6-letter word is stress. Right? We think about stress. Oh, I'm so stressed out. It's terrible. It's horrible. What's fascinating about why we think stress is bad is about 30 years ago, a scientist, Hans Selye, he's actually coined with making the word a normal sort of daily word. And the push that he had behind it is that stress is bad. And here's what's really interesting. In the last 5 to 7 years, scientists have uncovered that not all stress is bad. As a matter of fact, stress can actually be quite good for all of us. And I mean, think about what we just heard from Alana Nichols, what we heard from the Toyota athletes. I mean, gosh, some of the things they've been through have caused them to reach these tremendous heights with their lives where they're leading from inspiration and intention and just having this amazing effect on all the people around them. And that's wonderful. And then we think about driving in traffic, and we think about work-life balance and workload and all the stuff we have to do. And that's chronic stress. It's the kind of stress that we rationalize and just, hey, it's not really that big of a deal. I'm just going to ignore it. That's the stuff that if we continue to ignore it can actually turn into illnesses and manifest itself into the body. Abby mentioned that earlier when she was talking about how anxiety can show up physically. And so it helps to understand where that's coming from. It's from that little lizard brain that we all know from science class as the amygdala. Now, I like to refer to the amygdala as Darth Vader. Helps me understand it a little bit more, right? Darth Vader's pretty sensitive, right? Takes everything personally. So according to the amygdala, everything is a threat. Doesn't matter if it's your dog or your kids or someone cutting you off in traffic. It's all bad news. And then the amygdala stores that information and gets stronger and stronger and bigger until we start to feel stuck. Right? And so how do we get unstuck? How do we start changing some of those neural pathways that lead us to that place of stuck? And that comes from understanding your stress. So step one is to start getting some clarity on, is this stress acute or is it long-term chronic stress? And how am I addressing it? Right? The next thing to think about is recognizing some of the signals that start to put you into that spiral of feeling stuck. And then implementing some skillful responses. So when you think about stress eating, right? Paying attention to, what am I doing here? Did I really want to eat this entire bag of Fig Newtons? Was I really in control at that moment? Probably not, right? So next time, putting them away, putting them behind other food, and then drinking more water. It's interesting how sometimes these little bitty things really add up. So starting to think about stress in a different way really helps us to be more mindful on a daily basis. All right, Scotty.
All right, I am here. Thank you for that. And you know, honestly, Lori, the whole question of the stress reactions that we have, it really can be so damaging to us.
Yep.
And being able to just manage, like talk about breaking it down into baby steps and the small things that we do. And so when you think about the big things that you want in life, what, you know, they tell us, dream big, follow your passion, you know, those are the things that they tell us. But what they don't tell you is, oh yeah, and there's a lot of stress there. And
yeah.
there's, you know, things that you're gonna come up against, unexpected things that are, you're not going to know how to make a choice. As Maria said earlier, make the right choice, or just choose the right thing at this junction. Don't worry about
right
down the line. So, you know, those, not understanding that we are allowed to break it down, not understanding that we don't have to do everything perfectly all the time, at every moment, is I think helps to alleviate some of that stress.
It really does, you know, and you make a great point. You know, when I'm working with my coaching clients, they have these laundry lists of things that they want to do. And what's fascinating about that is statistics show if you have a laundry list of things, the likelihood of doing any of them is 0%. So you really, truly want to bring it down to just 1 or 2 things that you're going to prioritize. Then you're more than likely going to be able to accomplish those goals. And you just make those little micro movements as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate so much your insights here. You'll be back with us at the end of the hour
Sure.
to to further talk about how we can implement these mindfulness ideas and tips. And for right now, we're going to move on to our session talking with our friends at Volkswagen and our friend Stacey Bannor from Bannor Toys. And we're still waiting for Stacey to get here, but I'm really excited to introduce Taty Padilla. Taty, unmute your mic and say hello to everybody. And then I'm going to ask Will Gock, who's also here from Volkswagen, to join us on video. And let me see if I can get his setting here. And there's Will. Hey, Will. Unmute your mic. And Taty, say hello. Good afternoon. Buenos dias. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I'm having
good.
all of the sessions. They've been incredible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. We have had so much fun today. I feel like the time has really flown by, which is hard to believe. But I just got a message that Stacey's on her way, so she'll be here in a minute. But right now, I'd love to introduce Will from Volkswagen. Hi, Will.
Hi, Scotty. Hi, everybody. Hope you're doing good today. Yeah, my name's Will Gock. I'm with the product communications team for Volkswagen of America, and happy to join you today and talk a little about our products and a little bit about everything else.
So when we started planning this, Will actually had a really good idea. And what he said was he would love to have us talk about people with small businesses and people who really multitask with their vehicles and are juggling a lot of different things in their lives, especially as they are following a passion, building a business, doing things that are really fulfilling, but having tips to be able to do those things and having some good advice is really helpful. So that was Volkswagen's suggestion, and so I've invited Taty, who is the founder of Cool Mom Cool Tips and located in Miami, and Stacey Bannor. Stacey, say hello and unmute your mic there.
There we go. Hi.
Founder of Bannor Toys, and I wish I had some right here with me to show you. They're all in all the gift bags. We have 250 really amazing Bannor toys that are going to go out in all the gift bags. And so Taty is going to moderate the conversation. I'll be back in a little bit with some questions from our viewers. If you have questions, put them in the chat or put them in the Q&A on the Huba app, because we're going to ask those questions towards the end of the conversation. But with that, Taty, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Scotty. Stacey and Will, thank you so much for being with us today to talk about juggling and balancing. Before we go into that, I wanted to let everyone know that at the end of the hour, we're going to have a very exciting giveaway. Of course, we're giving away a chance for you to have some Bannor toys. And so one lucky winner will get a gift card to Bannor toys. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let's just dig in. Stacey, I'm not sure if you want to introduce yourself a bit.
Sure. I'm Stacey Bannor. My husband and I started Bannor Toys in our basement 9 years ago, and we are a thriving 7-figure company now. We are expecting our 4th child in February and just growing a company along the way.
Thank you, Stacey. Congratulations on that baby on the way. Will, you gave us some background on your work at Volkswagen at the top. Is there anything else you want to add before we dig into our conversation today?
I'll give you a little bit of a personal history. Yeah, I've been here at Volkswagen for about 5 years now, a little over 5 years. And before joining the team here, I was actually an automotive journalist myself, and I did that for the better part of a decade. So written for numerous publications and freelance and staff jobs, and kind of all over the place. So I've done a little bit of everything. So I can relate to being on the other side, and I can relate to multitasking and trying to do a million things at once. I mean, can't we all today, like with everything? But yeah, that's a little bit more about me. I won't hold you up with anything else right now. Yeah, let's jump in.
All right, so just like Stacey said, you can all find me at Cool Moms Cool Tips. Sorry, it's a bilingual lifestyle blog where we talk about entertainment, DIYs, and recipes, and basically anything and everything that will help a family be cool, chill, and zen. So as you can see, all three of us have the power of multitasking, but let's go straight to this. Stacey, what is the life of a busy business owner these days? I mean, we have lots being thrown in the mix right now. Are there any pain points that you need to overcome, that you have overcome? Do you have any thoughts on that for us?
Yeah, well, gosh, this year threw a curveball at all of us, no matter what you do, I think. And so there's been a lot of learning lessons this year, especially in how to balance and juggle and rearrange and plan differently, just so that you can change the direction you're going and make it work for what's happening around you, especially in business. So because all our chains got interrupted when the coronavirus hit and stuff. So ordering wood got harder, and all these things that you don't necessarily think about on a day-to-day basis happened out of the blue. So part of being a business owner is knowing that you have to figure that out real quick. You can't just sit on something for a while. So it's learning to pivot and redirect where you're going.
I can totally relate to what you're saying. Will, on the flip side of things, is there anything that we should know about Volkswagen helping us with things that we're constantly multitasking and juggling? Anything in the cars that help us do double duty?
Yeah, we like to think pretty much everything in our lineup does that. I mean, personally, I've never run my own business, but I imagine when you're starting out, your early expenditures don't often include going out and buying a brand new vehicle. With some things you got to make do with what you have. And I think that holds true for a lot of us, regardless of what we do for a living. And I also think that's a big reason why SUVs have become so popular in our culture. They do it all, or they should, by definition, do it all. So, when you're shopping for a car that's like a Swiss Army knife of a vehicle, there's a lot you really have to look at and consider, the passenger space, the cargo space, how easy it is to flip between the two of them to go, back and forth. Do you need all-wheel drive or not? Is the technology upgradable? Is there a path there? How does it drive? And of course, how does it look too? You want something you can look at and really smile at and be proud of that you purchased every day. And I'm here to talk about our products, but I honestly feel that with our Atlas, which is our main vehicle we were presenting through this conference to you, really checks all those boxes. If you've been in it before, I think you'll attest that it's absolutely enormous inside, but if you get behind the wheel, it drives like something much, much smaller. So I think that's something not every competitive offering can say. And, even just the little tiny details of it, it sounds so insanely simple. Like why would he choose to talk on this? But the seat latch in the car, which gives you access from the second row to the third row, that's quite often a pain point in SUVs or other vehicles. But the way, our engineering team worked out this thing is pretty incredible. Like it's hard to explain to you just right here, but you open the door, you flip the latch one way if you want the seat to fold one way, you flip it the other way if you want it to go the other way. The things pretty much collapse into the floor and lay flat, with hardly any effort at all. And we're even us on the product team, you know, it sounds like we're drinking the Kool-Aid, but we're amazed with how simple it works. And we asked the Germans, like, we want to do a story on this or something. This thing is incredible. And they're like, yeah, we made it work. That's really all they can tell us about it. It's a little piece of magic in the car. But I'll cut it off there. I'll quit rambling on the product itself, and we can go on. But I think that hopefully tells you a little bit of, you know, what goes into thinking about our offerings and how they pertain to your daily life.
It sounds like we can all use a little bit of the magic that is in the car.
Yeah.
You're pointing us in the right direction. Now, Stacey, I wanted to ask you, with all the changes that you've gone through, is there any advice that you have for planning for the future? Anything that we should keep in mind in terms of goal setting and thinking ahead?
Yeah, we've actually learned a lot over the past 9 years. My husband and I, obviously we're partners, both co-founders in our company, and I very much think kind of right in front of me the next 6 to 9 months, and he thinks the next 5 years. And meshing those two ideals and ways of planning has really helped us grow as a company, but also, you know, in our family and in other aspects of our life, thinking long-term versus just short-term gains. So whether that's, you know, planning toys, I'm going to tell you, we made a huge mistake earlier this year, and we traded in my minivan for a car that will not fit enough kids now that we have one. So we're actually going to be looking at some SUVs this fall because we didn't plan that one right. So just kind of taking everything into account and knowing where you're at, but also where you want to go and how, kind of road mapping how to get there. Whether that's, you know, finding more help or hiring a new person, what you sign your kids up for. There's so many things to take into consideration when you're setting a goal for your family, but also for your business.
Well, it sounds like you have a great match between the short-term and the long-term view that you and your husband have. Will, rebounding on what Stacey said, now that they've fallen short on space, thinking ahead, as your family grows, mobility, time management, family time, what are some of your thoughts on these aspects?
Sure. Well, I mean, time management, that's a tough thing to give advice on. I mean, there's no one size fits all answer, right? But I'm going to fall back for this as my time as a Boy Scout and share the Scout motto, which, as you might know, is be prepared. I mean, you can't be ready for anything. I mean, look at this year, right? But from an automotive standpoint, I think you can use your car to at least try to be. So for an example, I always like to keep a nice change of clothes in my car. So like something versatile, like a blazer and nice jeans. You know, there have been many times where opportunities for me have just like popped up right then on the spot, and you don't want to close them out like, oh, yeah, I'm not dressed well enough for it, and that's just one little example. But you know, it's, even if you never use it, it's kind of empowering to know that you've taken that step, you have that opportunity. Like, you know, I'm ready for whatever today is going to throw at me. But make sure your car is ready too. I mean, take care of those warning lights when they go off. You know, go to the dealership, don't put it off. Check your tires. You know, fill your gas tank when there's crazy weather coming. In terms of family, I guess some tips that I can share that I do. You know, just make yourself make the time. I mean, before lockdown, I traveled close to every other week, and it's tough. You know, you have to establish your boundaries with your employer, basically, and tell them, you know, hey, this is what I'm willing to do, and this is what I can't do. Block out your calendar for those days that you just aren't willing to be away, or, you know, block out time for a weekly lunch date with your partner or spouse or your kids even. And the calendar's there to help run your day, not to dictate it for you.
I like the idea of blocking out time for the family. That I think I'm going to be implementing that. Thank you, Will.
Yeah, my pleasure.
I wanted to, now that you touched, both of you, upon the balance, how do you do it? How do you balance work and life? How do you ensure that one doesn't overpower the other, or one becomes the center of the universe, even if it's just for that week or month? How do you start working on that? Stacey, want to start on that?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to kind of bounce off what Will said. And it has taken me a while to kind of learn this, but of all the things we juggle, and it's more than just family and friends and kids and work and church, there's like 100 balls we juggle every day, right? Whether it's the oil change, or the kids need a dentist appointment, or I want to have dinner with my husband, or Q4 reports are due. All those things we juggle, they're either glass or they're like bouncy balls. So it's learning which balls you can drop. Which balls, if you drop them, can you pick them up the next day and they're fine? And which balls, if you drop them, they're gonna shatter. So some days there's family balls that get dropped so that work can, I can focus on work. And other days, work sweat gets set aside so that I can focus on family and be there for preschool graduation or make date night. So it's just kind of learning which ones are more important. And some days it's a little bit of both. And then asking for help. I think help's a huge thing, especially women don't like to ask for right away. We hired a housekeeper a couple years ago, but that's after 7 years of running this company and, doing the dishes at 2 a.m. before I'd go to sleep because there was no time during the day. So just asking for help and knowing what things can wait till the next day and get pushed down on your to-do list, I think, is important.
Okay, I'm keeping all of these points in mind. So what important considerations do we need to keep afloat for families that are on the move, for families that are constantly evolving, like in Stacey's case, having a baby in next year? So what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll give you my thoughts on it. I mean, we can't always separate work and life as much as we'd love to. There's always going to be some sort of bleed. So I try to use it to my advantage. I mean, I don't think I mentioned it earlier. I have a 10-year-old son, and I'm lucky enough to have a job that he thinks is really cool and he wants to learn about all the time. I know not everybody feels that way, but even if you don't, give it a shot when your kids or your partners ask, because I can't tell you how many times I've not wanted to bother my family with work issues, only to have them give some like incredibly simple solution or advice I wouldn't have thought of without them. And tell them how those situations turn out, how you settled the misunderstanding or how you helped come up with a better slogan or name with the advice that they gave you. It's going to help in those times where you have to put 100% of your attention on the job, and they'll be cheering for you instead of feeling like, work took you away again.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Great insight, both of you. At this point, before we go into my favorite question, I wanted to ask both of you, what's the inspiration behind, in your case, Stacey, what's the inspiration behind the wood toys? And Will, what's the inspiration or what inspired the Atlas?
Sure, I will start. So ours was simple. I used to run an in-home daycare, and we had baskets of toys that were broken or needed batteries replaced or stickers were peeling off. And I looked at my husband and I said, I need to go buy new toys. And he said, no, I'm just going to make you some. So he bought a scroll saw, and it was kind of like a stress relief for him to woodwork, and then parents thought the toys were cute, and so we kind of jumped into it without knowing what we were getting into. But the inspiration was really just making an heirloom toy that would last, that wouldn't break and be an inconvenience for parents and kids.
We're excited to get those in our swag bags. Will, share the inspiration for the Atlas, please.
Well, inspiration for the Atlas was basically to long story short, to keep our customers. You know, we won't lie. We were a little late to the SUV game, but we realized it's somewhere we had to be if we were going to remain competitive in the U.S. market. So, you know, we like to think of from an inspiration point of view. It's our modern day people mover. So, you know, everybody knows the bus from back in the day, and I know probably a lot of you out there are going to ask me about the bus that you've seen that's coming in another couple years. That I can't say too much about today, but the Atlas it's a really nice in between. You know, it's a true 7-seater. It's not like you know, us really fudging those numbers to get a vehicle that size on the market. And yeah, it was inspired. I would say, you know, I didn't come up with the idea, but I think, you know, it comes from that history of us having a strong people mover vehicle, and the history of us of just making cars year after year that are continuously fun to drive. And it's really not like, I know some of you might be thinking I'm crazy, like, oh, a 7-seater SUV fun to drive. You know, if you haven't, you got to try it out. It is a really, really cool vehicle in that respect.
And correct me if I'm wrong, the Atlas was designed by the American team, and it truly kept in mind the needs and wants of consumers. So basically, you and me are going to be very satisfied with a car like this.
Yes, that's a very good point, and I'm glad you made that. So it was the first vehicle, as you mentioned, truly designed for the North American market. Like you can't go to Germany and buy an Atlas; they just don't sell it there. It's not a vehicle that works for their culture. But here, it's perfect. It fits the needs of so many people, and even right down to the name was an exercise of us getting the freedom to really talk to our market. You know, it had another name when it started off. VW has had this history of all of our SUVs worldwide, starting with a T. And Germany, you know, tried to say, okay, this is going to be the name for your new vehicle in the planning stage. And we said, no, we need a good, strong American name. And shopped it around. Atlas seemed to ring with a lot of people, and we made it happen.
Well, I'm glad about that, not so much because my name starts with a T, but okay, we'll take the Atlas. So now back to my favorite moments of the questioning, because Cool Moms, Cool Tips were all about taking away stress from families to be as cool and collected as possible. So how do you keep your life stress-free? What types of tips do you have for our daily routines to be as de-stressed as possible? Stacey, you want to share with us first?
Sure. I don't think stress-free is possible, but for stress relief, I like to just sit in my car sometimes. Like after I drop the kids off to school, before I go to the office, I'll swing through the coffee shop and I'll, you know, drive around town, or I'll just sit in the parking lot before I go in to have a few moments to myself. Likewise, at the end of the day, after the kids go to bed, my husband and I always try and connect with each other for a little bit before we just, you know, go to bed and stuff, to kind of figure out what's going on and make sure we're on the same page with everything.
How about you, Will?
You know, it's a little different, but I like to have a physical object I see every day in my life that makes me laugh, even if it's something dumb. Like right now, I have a mug, and it has this llama and flowers on the front of it, and on the inner lip it says "No drama." And every morning I have my coffee out of it, and I sit there day after day, and I look at it, and I giggle, and I'm like, look at this stupid thing. But it puts me in a good mood. And on days when things get wild, I think about that little "no drama" written in there, and the lightness of it all just kind of helps me deal with anything else coming my way. Another little bit of advice is to just remember that, you know, you can't fix everything, and even if you can, it's not always your job to. One of my favorite sayings is the age-old, not my circus, not my monkeys. And you start to think about it, and it really applies quite often with things that you face in life.
Well, yes, keep the drama at bay. And I like the idea, Stacey, sorry, of finding a moment to reconnect with your partner before you go to bed. Sometimes we just run off and forget that there's still more things going on, and not just, especially you guys with the business. So talking about the business, what things have you learned? Because both you and Will have built something for customers and consumers. So what have you learned in the process? What things lighted the light bulb now that you're a business owner and you're doing things as opposed to before?
Sure. For us, I think when we started out, we thought we knew exactly what we were selling, what our customer wanted. And in actually connecting with our customers and selling toys and getting feedback, we learned that we were selling more than just a toy. That connection with moms, that like kind of a group feeling, and toys that they can grow with. Our customer service has become #1 in our company. We have a lifetime guarantee on our toys, because that's important to moms, that we're selling something we believe in, that's safe, that's gonna last, you're gonna be able to hand it down. So in the beginning, it was more about, rudimentary shapes and this is a rattle, and whereas now it's more about, this is kind of, people are going to more Montessori lifestyles and playrooms and getting back to like the root of learning and playing. And so we've learned to transition kind of what we're selling for what our customer wants based on feedback. And I think that was an important lesson for us to learn a few years into this company.
Big lessons, big lessons. Well, what did the Volkswagen team learn in building the Atlas?
We learned just how important SUVs are to the U.S. market. I mean, in the 60-something years we've sold cars in this country, we've been known as a small car brand. Cars like the Beetle, the Jetta, everybody loves them. It seems everyone has owned one or two of them at some point in their life. But as fun and lovable as they were, people outgrew them and we had nothing else to offer. Now it's just a few years after we introduced the Atlas and we revamped the Tiguan into like a true SUV. And now SUVs account for roughly 50% of our sales, and numbers only growing. So just a few months ago, we added the 5-seater Atlas Cross Sport to the lineup. And you may have seen in the news recently, we have another all-new model, the Taos, which is going to slide in size-wise under the Tiguan coming. And on top of all of that, there's our move towards electrification, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But we're really on our way to being regarded as a full-line manufacturer, and we're doing it by building fun-to-drive cars of all shapes and sizes.
Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to remind everyone that you can ask questions to our amazing panelists today. Just put them in the chat and we'll make sure you get the answers for that. Stacey, I wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for people that are wanting to build a business right now?
Yeah, I would just say go for it. Honestly, had we stopped to think about what we were actually starting 9 years ago, we wouldn't have started it. We would have looked at all the obstacles in our way, the amount of money it takes, the amount of safety testing and regulations you have to go through, just the marketing. Neither my husband and I, neither of our degrees are in anything business related or marketing. So that's all something we've learned along the way. And I think had we known how much work it was going to be, we wouldn't have done it. But we had a passion early on, and we enjoyed making toys and we enjoyed connecting with people, that we just decided to go for it. My husband actually, I ran an in-home daycare when we first started it, and my husband worked for a national bank. And we started in October, and he quit his full-time job that following February to focus on the toys full-time. Like, we literally just jumped into it and decided it wasn't gonna fail. So I would say if you have an idea or a dream, like as cliche as it is, like just go for it. If you really think it's something that you're going to be passionate about, you can do it.
I agree. And I wonder in a few years, what if we had done it?
Right.
So I'm not sure if both of you know that you have something in common. Stacey and Will, both of your products are manufactured in the US. So I wanted to talk a bit about how you make that choice, because most of the products today are manufactured overseas. Yes, Stacey.
Yeah, sure. For us, it was simple. We were young parents at the time, and all the toys that were breaking had made in China, made in Taiwan. I mean, they were made elsewhere, and the quality just wasn't standing up. So for us, it was always important from the get-go to make a quality product that we ourselves could oversee. And still to this day, even though we have thousands of products that go out all the time, I see almost every single one of them before they leave our door. And that's something that's one of our core values. It's it's important to us to have a quality product that's made here that parents know is safe.
Will, want to chime in on manufacturing in the US?
Yeah, happy to talk a little bit about that. So you are correct. We are a global company. We have factories all over the world, but the Atlas and the Atlas Cross Sport and actually the Passat sedan are all manufactured in our facility in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And that's, it's really helpful for us on a lot of fronts. Number one, it's job creation here in the US. And we've actually expanded the plant recently once for the Atlas Cross Sport, and we'll be doing it again. We've already broken ground to bring a lot of our EV manufacturing here to the US. But having it situated in a way where the cars relevant for the local market are built there, it just makes a lot of sense for so many logistics. Volkswagen as well has made a commitment to be completely carbon neutral by 2050, and part of that is really doing things smarter. It's not just finding the right suppliers or the right ways to build things. It's also where it's cutting down those shipping requirements and costs and bringing vehicles by boat across the Atlantic. So to have a plant here that makes some of our core vehicles to the U.S. market, it's just a wonderful thing. And to see that it's only getting bigger, we're really proud of it.
Thank you for sharing. Next, I want for us to talk a bit about emotional resilience. I mean, these days, it's a skill that we have to sharpen and have to rely on. How do you keep your ups and downs in check? How do you keep everything in a positive tone? Do you have any tips that we could use to keep resilient in these challenging times? Will?
Yeah, I would say a really important thing to remember is that no matter who you are in your household, no matter what your title is at work, everything's not always on you. What we're going through as a nation, as a planet right now, it's unprecedented. You don't have to be the strong one all the time. My wife can tell when I'm down, no matter how much I try to hide it. My kid can too. So it's not always my gut instinct, but I really do my best to remember that I'm not going to fix it all. One person didn't get us here to where we're at, and one person isn't going to get us out. So my advice is, be there for others, but allow them to be there for you too when you need it.
Stacey, your thoughts?
Gosh, I love what Will just said on that. I think it's important to remember that you're not the one that maybe ruined everything. You're also not the one that's going to fix everything. Because I think a lot of times people put too much on themselves, whether that's at home or at work. I know here, speaking as a boss of a team of employees, when things get busy or hard out on the floor, like I'm out there with them, helping them. And we implement fun things like lunches every week, and we take them out for pedicures, and we do stuff as a team that's not necessarily related to work, just to get the focus back on basics again. So I like going back to basics when things get to a stressful level.
Sounds like I need to apply for a position at your company. Stacey and Will, thank you so much for sharing so much insight with us. We do have questions for you from the viewers, so we're gonna tackle those now. And again, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your candid answers.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
I'm gonna share some of the questions that we're getting from viewers in the chat. But I have a question that I would love to know the answer to from both of you. And that is, how did you pivot during the pandemic? Stacey, why don't you talk? Why don't you share first? What did you do differently to keep your business going, and what kind of experience did you have with that?
Well, ours, because we're parents and our kids are in school, we really saw how it was affecting our customers. Having their kids home all of a sudden, and you don't know what to do with them, and you're not sure how to teach them, and you're not sure how to keep all these, you're used to sending your kids to school 8 hours a day. So we came out with a huge extra line of educational toys, different matching games, different block sets, board games, just a lot of basic toys that they could use for, the toddler through probably second grade aged kids that could keep them busy while they're at home. Toys that parents didn't necessarily have to play with and that siblings could play together. And so we had a big sale, and it ended up being one of the best months we've ever had in 10 years. So we pivoted that way, and it worked out for our company.
And so did you have a hiccup in your manufacturing because of the lockdowns?
In our chain supply, wood became very hard to source at a reputable price. A lot of prices got inflated. We use American hardwoods for almost everything, with the exception of Baltic birch plywood, which comes from overseas. So for the most part, our wood supply was fine. It just got a lot more expensive than it normally is. Wow.
Well, it looks, the educational products are amazing, as I was looking through your catalog and really enjoying that, and want to be a kid again. Yeah. Will, tell us about how Volkswagen had to pivot during COVID. I know that there were demand for cars went up, but it's also harder for people to shop if you can't go into a showroom. What kind of pivots did Volkswagen make, and what did you learn?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy and proud to talk on this one. There were a number that we had to make, and some that we necessarily didn't have to make, but we did anyway. Early on, when things really started shutting down, the executive leadership at Volkswagen of America said, hey, we have, our plant's going to be stopping, because one of the first things we did was say, hey, we can't have this mass group of people coming together. It's way too risky. But we still had access to this global supply chain, all of these partners that work with us to build these amazing vehicles. And so many of them are just kind of sitting idle. What can we do about it? So we put together a small team of people from different areas of the country. I'm happy to say I was on that team, and we got together, we met daily to see what we could do to contribute in some way, even if it has nothing to do with cars. And one of the biggest wins I would say from this is we identified the opportunity with one of our fabric suppliers in Mexico. Fabricia is their name. We spoke with them, and they said, hey, we think with a little bit of help and some ingenuity, we can shift our lines to produce PPE. So we got the experts talking, and we actually ended up, they're not building car seats or interior panels anymore, but they they put their workers to making face masks and medical grade gowns. We took the first shipment from them, the inaugural shipment, which I believe was somewhere in the neighborhood of 250,000 units combined, and we had that air freighted over to the Javits Center in New York when it was still the temporary hospital. And from that point on, you know, there was a time, luckily we're in much better shape now, but there was a time where masks were pretty hard to come by. So we set up this whole side business with Taty-Cool. You know, we didn't make any money on it. And I don't really think that they made a whole lot of money on it either. But it, you know, it kept them working. It kept things moving, everything, you know, because when you do something like shut down a factory completely, I mean, it's way beyond my knowledge or pay grade, but you can't just go flip a switch and turn it all back on. You know, there's ramp up, there's all these things that need to happen. So the fact that we were able to do that for them only helped them return to business as normal anyway in the long run. So then another kind of unrelated thing, I'll just say that we also decided, hey, if we still want to sell cars, there's a lot of people out there that are really taking this quarantine and lockdown thing seriously, but they still need new cars. So we implemented our first ever digital signature, which allowed people to complete their purchases from home safely, so they didn't have to be out there risking their health, risking other people's health to get a very necessary product in their life.
That's amazing. And honestly, the question about being able to buy something without actually signing a piece of paper it's been a contentious point, because I believe you can buy a house without ever signing a piece of paper, but you couldn't buy a car. So yeah, that's amazing to hear. And as Stacey said before, you know, she finds those few minutes of quiet time in her car when she's by herself. Sometimes that's the only time you're by yourself, because you know, young mom, and you're not even alone in the bathroom. So your car might be the only time you are alone. And we're finding, I think a lot of people are finding, and one of the reasons that we wanted to have these conversations today is that so many people are finding their car is their bubble. That's where you're with your family. That's where you have safe time by yourself, where you can listen to music, where you can clear your thoughts, where you can, you know, be a little mindful, you know, meditate a little bit. And so that's nice to know that Volkswagen is thinking that way too. So I have some questions from viewers. Rachel Wisman wants to know, Stacey, what was your favorite toy growing up?
Gosh, you know, growing up, I remember like playing with Polly Pockets and Popples and all sorts of old things from the late 80s. I think Polly Pockets were one of my favorites when I was a little kid, though.
That's great. It's I remember those too, and they're just so cute little.
Yeah.
So. Was there something about children's toys that inspired you, though, especially for the things that you're making now, like the baby rattles and the baby and the toddler toys?
Yeah, actually, when we were back at my grandparents' house, I went up in the attic and I found all my mother's old toys and my aunt and uncle's old toys up there. And she had just boxes of blocks and trucks and old things, like one of the original Fisher-Price, like you push it and it pops. They make them now, but the old version was really cool. So it was neat to see how those old toys had been kind of recycled and made modern into plastic. And now our goal is to make them again out of wood, which they were originally made out of.
That's fantastic. And I think the idea of the wooden toys that were so simple, we've gotten obsessed with technology, and now we're hearing that all of these people who are building all that technology won't let their children have screens.
Right. Yeah.
So there's something very nice about going back to a nicely toned, nicely lathed piece of wood that
Right.
creates a toy that feels good to hold on to and that you feel good about your baby chewing on.
Yeah, well, and it's just neat to see a child play with toys that don't have instructions. It's neat to see their imaginations start to build rocket ships, or, you know, it's neat to see how their minds actually work when you allow them to let it work.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an announcement coming up, I think tomorrow. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So yes, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern on YouTube, on the Volkswagen YouTube channel. So it's YouTube/VW, I believe. We are doing the virtual unveil of our first long-range SUV, and what we like to say is the first e-SUV for the masses, and that's our ID4 vehicle, which will meet the world tomorrow. So yeah, if I can say just a little bit about it, you know, it's not a Tesla killer. It's not positioned as a Tesla killer. You know, that seems to be the thing a lot of people like to go to when a new EV comes onto the scene. You know, but we've been saying for a while at our auto shows and different presentations that we want to make EVs for the millions and not the millionaires. And that may even sound like a little bit of a dig, but it's really not. So yesterday we announced a deal with Electrify America, where we said that for all new ID4 customers, we're going to throw in 3 years of free fast charging on the Electrify America network. And what we're hoping that does is it takes away another barrier for those that don't think that owning an EV is a possibility for them right now. So like apartment dwellers, people who street park or garage park, not only is there a great network of fast chargers out there to use, but you know, they're on us for the first 3 years. So why not, you know, why not finally take that step and say, okay, you know, it's time for me to try an EV. I mean, I can't give away too much more at this point, but the positioning of this car, it's going to be more than this should be your first EV. It's going to be more like this should be your next small SUV, period. And that's bold, I know, but we feel really good about it. It's a really exciting time for us. It's a hard pivot away from some past events for us, and I hope you all tune in tomorrow to see. I think you're really going to enjoy it.
So you dropped a little hint there. It's an SUV.
It is. It is an SUV. Yeah, and if you look at you know, what's been offered in the market so far, it's really filling a niche that hasn't been spoken to yet, at least on a level that's affordable for most people. You know, there are e-SUVs out there, but this is the one that we hope is really going to get the general public to open up and say, okay, maybe it's finally time for me to try an EV.
Well, there's a question in here about time management, and which I'm going to toss to Stacey, but I have to say, if I could never go to the gas station again, how much of my time would I get back?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we have a question from one of our viewers, Stacey, about time management. How do you manage? You've got life, things that you want to do, work, things you have to do, and kids, things you must do. How do you draw the lines between those, and how do you manage all that?
Sure. Well, when we bought a commercial building a couple of years ago, and it happens to be right across the street from the elementary school that our kids go to. And so it became relatively easy at that point to say, I'm going to work while my kids are in school, and anything after that can wait till the next day. So the kids walk over here after school, and we're leaving the office within, 15 to 20 minutes. Most days. There are plenty of exceptions to that. But we also include our kids, like after school, if mom is stuck here, they're helping stuff boxes or sweep the shop floor. So it's not necessarily splitting them, but making it work together. But I've learned to have more clear cut. This is work time. This is home time. And then if I have to go back to work, it's after the kids go to bed. So kind of splitting it up like that.
It's nice that you can combine family and the things that matter to you. So
Right.
family and work. I personally have always believed that our kids need to see us work. And during the lockdown and days of Zoom meetings, I think every kid sees what their parent does now.
Right. Yeah. Well, and for us, it's important, like, you know, if our kids want a PlayStation or they want whatever the next big thing is that they want, like, they have to know that we earn it. Like, they're not just given it. Like, they see mom and dad work for what they're given, and they work for it themselves as well. So
that's fantastic. So we have a giveaway. And I want to remind everybody that there will be a Bannor Toys gift in the gift bag, compliments of Volkswagen. That is a gift of Volkswagen. So thank you, Will, for that. And we have a gift box to give away. It has a $150 value that will be mailed out from Bannor Toys. And the winner for that is Pamela Steffenhagen. So Pamela Steffenhagen, congratulations. Thank you for being with us today. Do we have Lori Rady ready to go? She's gonna come back and we're gonna talk about, there's Lori. We're gonna talk about all of the ideas that we've just been discussing and how to put some of those things to work. So with that, I'm gonna say thank you to Taty, thank you to Will, thank you to Stacey for being here, for joining us on this conference today and sharing your stories and your advice. And all of the stories, by the way, about the Atlas can be found on A Girl's Guide to Cars. We'll publish an index that has all the collected stories that some of our writers have been sharing over the last few weeks and sharing a little bit more in the coming weeks as well, sharing their test drive experiences. One of the comments that we had in here is a lot of people saying they've never test driven a Volkswagen and now they want to. So there's a lot more to share through those stories. So thank you, Taty. Thank you, Will. Thank you, Stacey. And welcome back, Lori.
I'm glad to be back, Scotty. Gosh, we've learned so much today and so many great tips. It's impressive, and I love hearing the variety of approaches to all these different ways we can be more mindful.
Yeah, it's been, you know, taking these ideas that we started off with, developing balance and really focusing on our beings this morning, and about how our mind, you know, relaxing our mind so that we really are in control. And by the way, I'm about ready to take a deep breath. And,
yes, in through the nose, out through the nose. Excellent.
About creating a sanctuary and filling that space with something that makes us feel good, that will help to put us in the mood that we want to be in. Thinking about how we can then target ideas or challenges that are ahead of us, and then finally how we put those ideas into action. So share with us your thoughts from the day.
Well, you know, it truly was a wonderful way to start. You know, being able to understand a little bit about how the mind and the body are connected. A lot of us think that the mind and the body are separate. And it's like, wait a second, we have this one body and we perceive, you know, through our senses. And so when we really start to think about it, gosh, the brain, the mind, the body, it's all connected. And so the idea of movement is really, really important. And I was so impressed by how Alana Nichols and, you know, overcoming some of these challenges and obstacles with a lack of movement. So using different ways to overcome these things, really, really powerful. And I think that's a key takeaway of how to apply mindfulness, right? You know, we sometimes get overwhelmed and our thoughts become just a bundle of static. And so truly just starting simple, taking that deep breath and asking myself, hey, what's one thing that I can do right now to step myself in the direction that I want to go?
And I think Stacey Bannor's advice, just do it, which is, you know, an April term, But it's funny, she, you know, her saying that if they had really planned out the business, they wouldn't have done it. But just following that passion and being able to take things one step at a time, and we've talked about that all day long, about the baby steps. One step at a time is, and she also said something to the effect of just be successful. And I think how we define success is so important, because it's not as necessarily winning the race. In fact, Deidre from Toyota said that they don't necessarily expect all their athletes to win a gold medal, but they do want to work with athletes who have that passion and share those values with the brand and with their team, so that they, whether or not they win a medal, they know that these are people who are really doing amazing things, really doing their best. And I think that's what success is. It's not that you won a medal, but it's that. Well, go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. You know, and it's interesting because a lot of us talk about work-life balance. Like for women, that's really important to us as work-life balance. And I think what's really important there is to recognize that this is going to be different for everybody, because how I might balance something would be totally off kilter for you and vice versa. And so this is where we have to do that internal soul searching and find out what is important to us and how do I want to move that forward and at what pace, right? You know, I mean, it's kind of like a pain threshold. Everybody has a different threshold for how hard they want to push. And that example I was sharing earlier about how my sister loves chaos. Chaos isn't my thing. I like a little bit more of a slower pace. But the thing is to find success, you need to know that about yourself. And that requires us to go inside and do some soul searching on how we feel and what's truly important to us.
Yeah. And I think that's something that we get caught up in, all of the things that are surrounding us, the pressures from outside, from our friends, from our social circles, from Facebook. And I love Facebook, but sometimes I have to just sit back and say, you know what, that's a good idea, but it's not meaningful to me. And so I'm going to ignore that one right now.
Yeah, you know, you make a really great point about that. You know, a lot of times we think about how what we eat matters. Well, what we read matters. What we watch matters. All these things can infect our mindfulness and our intentions and where we're trying to go. And these things really add up. So it's really just choosing more intentionally. You know, maybe choosing to be on Facebook and social media for work for an hour, and then unplugging from social media. So, you know, that allows us a little bit of separation. And then, you know, making sure we ask ourselves, how am I going to hold myself accountable? And having an accountability partner. So that was one of the things I wanted to share with everybody watching, is to reach out to somebody on the Hoova app and get an accountability partner, and maybe try meditation on Calm for 1 to 3 minutes for 2 weeks, and see how you feel, because you might be surprised at how there's a little bit more relief and things are a little bit easier to manage.
That's such a good idea. And by the way, the Calm app does have a free trial period. So I think it's a week or 2 weeks. So you can, you don't have to commit. You can just use it for free, which I did, and I'm hooked.
Same. Yeah, same here.
I listen to Rose every day.
Yeah, that was wonderful. And that's the great thing about it. You know, when I saw one of the questions on the app, and somebody had mentioned this earlier about meditation. It's important to remember that in meditation, you're not letting the mind daydream, right? You're not daydreaming. Meditation is about focusing. And so as a novice meditator, you really want to have something like Calm, which is a guided meditation, to help you stay focused. Eventually, over time, you're going to start to be able to recognize your thoughts, a little bit like people walking by a window. But that's going to take some time. In the beginning, it's a little staticky, and you really need a guided meditation, a guide like Rose, to help you through.
Well, that was a fantastic way to kick off the conversations today. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Pleasure.
Sharing your insights and your tips, because having you articulate, put into words, things that I think maybe we often know, but if we have the words to express it, that we can repeat to ourselves, that we can say over and over again, that we can say to other people, that's a pretty amazing tool. And I think it's one that we often ignore because we don't really know how to express it, so we just don't we just don't think about it. But when
Right.
we have the words, then it gives us the tools to accomplish the things we want to accomplish. So, and by the way, I didn't get a chance to say earlier, but today was Will Gock's birthday. It is Will Gock's birthday, and I did not get a chance to say happy birthday on the broadcast. Happy birthday, Will. So anyway, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you to everyone who joined us. And we're going to continue to share our stories. We'll continue to share them on the Whova app, so you'll be getting some notifications. You can come back and look at some of these stories. We'll share them on A Girl's Guide to Cars. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We'll be sharing there as well. And we really appreciate you spending your day with us. And we hope we hope that you learned a lot and had a lot of great things to take away. Thank you so much. Bye.